In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how much intensity or how hard you should be trying to make the shot happen and explain to you how to achieve this level of intensity ideally. And overall, this will help your archery experience. It'll make things more enjoyable and hopefully it'll help raise your scores. So I have been working on a Barebow form series, and this is going to be part of it. I've already covered this in my Olympic-style Recurve form series, but it's always good to revisit this and hear it again. And if this is your first time here watching this, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell because I pump out a lot of content related to this and trying to help make you a better archer. And, you know, subscriptions genuinely help this channel out, and I appreciate everybody who has. So I will have links in the description below, plus a card at the top up over there for you to check out the rest of the Barebow form series if you haven't seen it yet. But I really wanted to address the intensity shot cycle again because I've been talking about it, and I think it's really, really important to have this as far as like a picture or a perspective on how the shot should actually feel and how it should look internally to you. So this is the best way to explain it. My coach Keesick Lee came up with all this stuff, and he's the national head coach of USA Archery, and I've been studying under him for years. So I'm here to share you his methodology, explain to you better in detail what I feel while shooting Olympic style recurve, barebow, compound, doesn't matter. This really kind of gives a visual representation of what I feel internally. I talk about intensity a lot, and this is a really, really important topic. Intensity can easily be explained as this. If you relax your hand, this is a 0, right? And this is a 10. I'm squeezing as hard as I possibly can with this hand. But after a short few seconds, about now, I'm starting to lose blood flow into my fingers, and I'm starting to lose the feeling of where my fingers are. So, you know, that's not very good, and you wouldn't want that for archery. So now that I've got blood flow again, I can close my hand with a 2 out of 10, right? So intensity over here on the left, time over here on the bottom. So again, a 0, a 10, but I can close my hand with a 2. I can do things with a lot less effort and energy and not expend excess energy because of wasted intensity. So part of shooting archery, in my experience and in my opinion, is trying to be almost as lazy as humanly possible. Do the minimal amount of work to get the job done because our tournaments are relatively long and we need as much energy as we possibly can at the end of the day when we really need those last few arrows to count. So intensity again is over here on the left from 0 to 10, and time, for me, I will write a few steps of the actual shot cycle in this area, at least the KSL shot cycle or the NTS system, so you can kind of follow along what this one means. It's really not too important. What is most important is right in this area. We'll just call this spot release. All right. So in this time frame, this area is release. Everything else is how you're drawing the bow back, and you know, you've got some expansion and execution and things like that in there. So your typical average shooter will have a whole lot of intensity going on, right? So down here where they have not yet pulled the bow back, typically, as people are getting set into their bow, they already have a relatively high level of intensity because they're getting ready to do something exciting or explosive, you know, in shooting a bow. So they've already got a relatively high level of intensity. Some people do, and you can see that. We're gonna start at 0, even though I do see some people up a little higher. So we'll start at 0, and as people draw the bow back and start to pull the bow back, their intensity is just going up and ramping up, up, and up. And by the time they get to release, they're already way up here at a 7 to 8 out of 10 intensity-wise. And once they get to release, we'll just extend this line up for visual reference. Once they get to release, they just kind of go, and this is how it looks. When they go to release, it's right? Many people have that kind of like to get the shot off. Yeah, it's common. I've been guilty of it many times. And what that is this. A spike. So right when they release, it's an explosion, it's a release of all this tension, and it's uncontrolled and just chaotic. There's just chaos because it's just, you can't control it. It's too tough because there's too much effort required. Now, you can lower this intensity by going down in bow weight, but you can't do that when you need to shoot further distances, or you're just wanting to shoot the weight you're shooting. So lowering this just by lowering your bow weight, it lowers this, but it doesn't fix this. It's still explosive and chaotic. So ideally, due to the shot cycle that I use, and specifically because of the step of transfer, which happens right here in this area, this oval we'll call transfer. And I will explain to you how this affects the intensity first, but there is a video that I just produced specific to Barebow style archery, but it applies to everything about transfer. I'll have links in the description below, plus a card at the top up there in case you want to check it out. But transfer is there, and then in this phase, it kind of overlaps with transfer a little bit, and it overlaps release. This phase is expansion, which can also be execution. Okay, either way, whatever you want to call it. What expansion and execution is, I haven't covered it yet in the Barebow form series, but it's basically what you're doing those last moments before you release the string. If you're shooting recurve, before the clicker clicks. If you're shooting compound, before that release fires. So expansion is that time period. It's important to what I'm going to show you. That's why I have to explain it first. So what you can do then is you draw the bow back. You get to this part where you start to load and anchor, and as you start to anchor, you get to full draw. And right at this time period, because it would be the same for this line too, this would be full draw right around there. All right, so most people would continue to be intense because they're getting to full draw, aim, and right, this happens. Yeah. So with my style of shooting, you get to full draw, and then you take this mental step. I've already explained it on how to do transfer quickly. It is just separating this phase from this phase mentally and really committing to expansion in the way that I'm going to explain to you. And it genuinely can reduce your intensity. Just like I can control how much I close my hand with, same thing with how I draw the bow back, the positions I'm in. I can squeeze unnecessary muscles, I can have unnecessary tension, or I can do a 2 out of 10 and be lazy. So I get up to full draw, intensity is roughly at 5. I start to take the mental step of transfer and the physical step of transfer and try to calm down, try to lower my intensity as much as possible to that 2 to 3 window. Again, I can close my hand with that 2, not a 10. So 2 to 3, and all I'm going to do is the minimal amount of work. And when I am ready, after transfer is over and my intensity has dropped down to that 2 or 3 level, as you can see, the expansion phase is going to start to come in. This again is when you start aiming and checking string alignment and forgetting about this and focusing on this. And then you start to expand, and what happens? You're expanding, 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 expanding through the clicker. But if you don't have this next perception, this next piece of the thought process in your head, this spike and uncontrolled explosion will happen down here with less intensity. It'll be, this explosion, right? If you do what I am going to suggest here, focusing on expansion being, the expansion or the execution is not ending at release, if you notice here. It's ending past release. It ends when you finish the shot, when it ends, okay? That is the end of the shot. Expansion does not end when you release. It does not end when the clicker clicks. It does not end when the release fires or any of those things. The expansion or the execution ends when you end the shot. And the end of the shot is when the arrow hits the target. It's a few seconds after the shot breaks. Whatever it is to you, it's not super important. But the concept of this happening prevents this giant spike of intensity, this uncontrolled explosion upon release. And if you continue this line, you want to imagine and like internally try to continue pushing this line along that same path and that same upward trajectory as you're slowly expanding, and committing to finishing the shot. Push, 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 push. The shot breaks, push, 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 push. There's no explosion. So that would look more like load, anchor, transfer, expand, 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 clicker clicks, release, expand, 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 or Barebow. Load, anchor, transfer, and I'm aiming, everything's good to go. Pull, 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 let go, pull, 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 pull. There is no explosion, okay? So the transfer, which I've covered before, again, facilitates the separation of this side from this side and allows you to commit to this gradual sloping, this gradual increasing of intensity to get the shot to break. And because you're continuing that expansion past the actual release, or continuing that execution past the actual release, that allows you to have way more control in the shot, and it looks more like professional archers do, where they're just calm and cool and collected, and there's none of this boosh going on. So again, like I said, this applies to all styles of shooting: Olympic style recurve, barebow, traditional, compound, it doesn't matter. Really trying to focus on this gradual slope, the shot not ending when the release fires, when you let go of the string, or when the clicker clicks, the shot ending when you finish the shot. And to me, it is when I am either as far as I possibly can be in my furthest release back and around, where my hand touches my shoulder, finger touches my neck, whatever it may be. It just has to be some sort of cue or some sort of telltale thing that happens after you release. You don't want it to be when you're letting go of the string, because if you have that perception of the shot ending when you let go of the string, this explosion happens, or plucks happen, or collapses happen. All sorts of things can happen that do not head towards the 10 ring. So this is absolutely vitally important to absolutely apply to anything and everything related to archery. And this is just really valuable information on how to have an overall perspective and picture of what the shot should look and feel like from an internal stance.